Today on the show, we have a WEF special, Wellesley Education Foundation's special report on grants. We're going to introduce to you Linda and Susan. Linda is co-president of Wellesley Education Foundation this year. She also works part-time for Harvard Business Publishing's Corporate Learning Division, focusing primarily on the instructional design of leadership solutions. Linda is also on the board of Teachers 21 and was formerly co-president of Wellesley Middle School PTO and treasurer for Wellesley Youth Basketball. She received her BA from Wellesley College and her MBA from Harvard Business. Susan is on the board and co-chair of Wellesley Education Foundation's Grants Committee. She's co-president of Wellesley High School's PTSO, has been a town meeting member for a decade, and is active with Committee 21 as well as League of Women Voters. Her background is in education and English Lit, and Susan has worked in publications at Emory University and at Harvard's Development Office and Graduate School of Design. She has lived and traveled extensively and nationally and overseas. And Susan has also been PTO president for Sprague School and for the Wellesley Middle School, in addition to all the other things that she does. So you can imagine why we have these two lovely individuals, who are the exact right candidates today, to be talking to us about WEF's fall grants cycle. So the grants we're talking about today were funded for something like a total of $75,932.23. It's quite a number. But and actually I'm told that that's 10,000 or so short of the actual number, because that doesn't include the Ruth Walters.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so you ladies are going to tell us all about these fabulous grants that make our schools what they are. So we're going to start by asking you, tell us briefly, what does WEF do?
Well, WEF, the mission of WEF is to invest in programs that enhance, enrich, and maintain educational excellence, as well as foster innovation in the Wellesley Public Schools. And the programs that we mention here are really the grants that you mentioned earlier. That's WEF's bread and butter, and these are grants that educators and administrators in the district are welcome to apply for, and we have 2 cycles in a year, so that's what the grants are about.
And WEF was started by a group of citizens, Wellesley residents, who wanted to give more to the school systems?
That's
Is
correct.
That right?
Yes, the Wellesley Education Foundation was formed in 1984, and it was put together by a group of concerned citizens who at the time recognized that with the passage of Proposition 2.5, that property taxes alone were not going to be enough to really sustain a top-notch school system. And as a result, they put together what was called at the time Citizens for Wellesley Public Education. It was later renamed Wellesley Education Foundation. And the mission since day one has been to invest in programs that enhance, enrich the educational excellence within Wellesley Public Schools.
One thing I was really struck by was the first year they started awarding grants, they handed out about $5,000 in grants, and today we hand out a little over $150,000 a year in grants to teachers and administrators in the schools. So it's really been a growing proposition, and it seems to be something that the schools really value. So.
Well, that's what I would call support. It's $150,000 in supplemental funding to do interesting educational stuff.
Absolutely.
So would you consider this level of funding to be about average for WEF?
The fall cycle?
The fall cycle.
It's definitely, I would say, on closer to the upper range, upper end of the range. And I think one reason for that is because this year we did invite educators to apply for this environmental education fund, the Ruth Walter Fund. In the past, it had only been accepted in the spring cycle, and we actually did accept applications in the fall cycle. So that actually did, as you were mentioning earlier, increase the number of applications that came in, and as a result, the amount of awards that we gave out. So the total was actually close to $86,000 for this past cycle.
And how many grants would you say this fall cycle funded?
Well, we received about 27 applications, 27 to 30 applications
20.
for grants, and we were able to fund the majority of those. I think we funded 23 or
Yeah, I think it's
yeah,
about 20, 21.
Okay.
And who are typically the people who write these grants? Are they teachers? Are they schools, the principal, the PTOs? Who are the people who write these grants and submit?
Well, we've gotten grants from teachers, of course, and we really like to encourage teachers who have something new and different that they want to try. We like to support them if we can. We've gotten grants that have been from administrators that would affect a whole school level. For example, one of the grants that we funded will be for evaluation of sites to study the environment at all the elementary schools. So that's across all the elementary schools, which is nice. We've gotten grants from people for technology requests. And this year we even had a grant request that was mostly motivated through students, although they did have a teacher sponsor. So that was something new that we hadn't seen before.
And I think that the Wellesley Curriculum Review was also supported and funded by WEF, the recent curriculum review, right? For the superintendent's office, for the whole rollover curriculum changes that we're experiencing K through 12. I think that was part of the...
Right. Well, certainly the administrators, including, for example, Dean Blaze, the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, she was awarded a grant to send many of the educators to a conference. She did this last year and again this year. So, and it certainly does support the curriculum review, because it was science teachers last year, and I think it's mainly math teachers this year.
And also, I think WEF was also very strong in supporting the long-term strategic plan development. WEF provided some funding for that as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes, and I hear there's going to be quite a few significant changes over the next 3 to 5 years in terms of K through 12 curriculum. So it's exciting. And so tell us about the district-wide grants that WEF funded. Linda mentioned teacher conferences. Does that include teacher training as well? Is that for them to attend conferences and get extra support or learning?
Well, certainly, the conference is an excellent opportunity for them to meet with their peers and to learn through their peers. But some of the other district-wide grants include, and this is perhaps talking about the previous year, we have been involved in funding the expansion of the one-to-one program on the iPads. And this is actually something that really came out of a pilot that we had funded, I guess it would have been 2-3 years ago. And that was at the Schofield School, where they piloted in the 5th grade classroom the use of the iPads in the classroom. And as a result of that pilot, the district chose to expand that and roll it out to every 5th grade in the district. And what WEF was responsible for was providing not only devices for the educators, but also the training. And it's certainly something that was recognized early on, that in order for the program to be successful, the teachers really needed to be trained on the use of the technology.
Wow, interesting. And so there are grants. The grants that WEF funded range literally from K through 12. There are so many different ones that apply on so many levels.
Well, in fact, even this fall, we funded some science equipment for preschool class, the PAWS program, which is a preschool program in the public schools. So yeah, we cover a wide range of students.
And then there was a grant for chairs, special chairs that students could sit on, and I don't forget the name of those chairs, where you can, it's for kids who like to have a little bit more motion during learning time at school, so that was one.
That's been, I would say, primarily at the middle school and the high school levels, and many of the teachers have found that it's very effective to allow some students who aren't necessarily comfortable just sitting still for the entire period.
They learn better while they're having some motion.
Absolutely. even more
Less than
engaged.
focused,
Engaged.
Yeah,
Yeah.
less than focused.
Less than focused.
And I hear that you're the teacher who uses those chairs in the classroom had the students write an essay requesting why they should be good candidates for getting one of these chairs. So it's a process, and it's interesting how you do this. You put in these chairs, you fund these things, and then the teachers take over and they make sure that the right student who needs it gets it. So it's a great system.
Right. There, even this fall, we funded a grant to bring those same wobble chairs. I think they're called wobble chairs. At the elementary school level at Schofield, they were going to be.
I could use those
Trying
around my
those.
dining table. That would make mealtime a lot more relaxing for all of us. So not only that, but robotics hardware was another one that I saw. There's a teacher who applied for more robotics hardware for the class. What's that going to be used for? Do you guys know what specific applications that might go into or feed into? It sounded very intriguing.
Right.
What's not to love
Yeah.
about robots?
I know, well, certainly Brian Kelly at the middle school, he started the program in robotics, and it is something that he applied for a grant several years ago. So he actually had said to WEF that it's not an exaggeration that there would not be a robotics program if it was not for WEF and the funding that was provided.
And it continues to be a very popular class. In
Right.
fact, the request was for additional equipment so that they could expand the offering and also update what they have. So,
I heard this fabulous piece of information that between 2014 and this January, we have Wellesley has somewhere up to 15 to 20 first Lego League teams that parents have started and put together these teams to build Lego robots. And some of the hardware is the same hardware that was in this grant
Great.
that Mr. Kelly asked for. And I think it's the EV3 or something. There's a special robotics motor that you use for these. So it's exciting. I think also the expo this year, March 28th at the high school, they'll be packing the entire gym with all different companies bringing in their robots. So now all we need is a house robot, and we're all set. Cleaning, washing.
That's right.
No, sounds fabulous. So tell us about some of the criteria for which grants get funded and which don't. What is the grants committee looking for in terms of funding?
well, when we look at a grant, it goes through a pretty extensive review process. The teacher first has to make sure that the building principal and her department head and so forth are aware of what they're requesting and what they want to do. So they have to make sure that that's all approved. And then we take a quick look at it just as an executive committee to make sure it falls within the kinds of grants that WEF gives. We are looking primarily for something that's innovative, something that's maybe a little different, that wouldn't be something that normally would be funded through the school budget process. Once in a while we find ourselves in a situation where maybe there's something that the school budget might address in 3 or 4 years in terms of their cycle, but there's a need now, and sometimes WEF is able to step in and help out with that. But we're also looking for things that maybe someone wants to try something new, and if it works, we're hoping that then other teachers will take that idea and use it in their classrooms as well. And so we think of some of our grants as investing a little bit of an initiative and something new, and so that's another thing that we look at.
So it's almost like WEF has its own innovative laboratory here in Wellesley, where you give people all kinds of stuff and say, here, try this out. How does it work? And give us feedback.
Well, we're lucky. We
Yeah.
have really bright and gifted and dedicated teachers, educators that are here, and I think that enabling them to try some of these new ideas, by providing financial support,
Right.
helps us keep really good teachers in the and attract
Absolutely.
good educators to the Wellesley schools. So
And
I
it's-
think that we all benefit from that.
Right. And it sounds like you funded 3/4 of these grants that were sent your way. So give us an example, without naming any names. What are some of the grants that you declined, that didn't make the cut? or that weren't funded? Give us an example.
Well,
of-
sometimes we can't fund it. Sometimes grants come to us and they're not completely thought out, and so some of those we tend not to look as favorably on. Sometimes the infrastructure isn't there. For example, with technology, all the buildings have a certain amount of bandwidth, and if the building can't accommodate some of that, then maybe that's not where we feel like would be a good use of our funds if they aren't really going to be able to use it. There was one grant in particular I remember that we were being asked to. We were actually quite excited about it because it was for a big investment in equipment, computer equipment, but it turned out that the staffing for that teacher to teach that had not completely been processed through the school budget process yet, and so we were hesitant to fund equipment until they knew for sure that they could provide a teacher to teach
hire
that.
the staff needed to run it.
So sometimes that was just a matter of timing, I think. We basically liked that grant, but we just didn't feel like that was a good time for us to fund that. Or sometimes we feel like there's something that is going to be in the school budget for the next year, and then that's not a good use of our funds because we're trying to supplement and enhance what's available through the school budget. So,
Well, that's interesting. So supposing there was a school that requested, said we're going green, and we want to order 25 trash barrels and a composting site that we're going to put outside our school. Does anyone from the grants committee talk to them or go out there to see if they have the space to put this equipment or to host the technology or the hardware or software that they're asking for, or the actual barrels? Is there a site assessment that you ask them to provide and show that they have the space and the means to keep this going? Is that part of the?
I think the assumption is if they're going through their building principal that they've addressed that issue. If there are questions during the review process, if someone on the committee says, hey, I know that building and I don't know where they're thinking they're going to put that, then we will go back and ask the person submitting the grant, we have this question, and can you, tell us what your thoughts are, how you plan to. So there is a lot of give and take during the evaluation process if there are questions like that.
And it also sounds like the people on the grants committee are all Wellesley residents who sort of know all the schools and the system quite well.
Well, the grants committees, the initial pass is made by people on the Wellesley Education Foundation board, and so all of us are pretty heavily interested in the schools. The final award committee is made up of half from WEF and half are teachers and educators and administrators from the schools, and so they are really familiar with what's available in the buildings and the staffing and that kind of thing.
It's awesome. Good to know. So let me ask you this question. For the next, this is a lot of money. This is $85,000. So is there enough budget? WEF has enough budget to go through another grant cycle coming up in the spring, I believe? There's another one, right?
Yes. WEF definitely benefits from the generosity of both residents and businesses in town. And every year we certainly budget at least close to $150 for the grants. And we do also have an endowment fund, which also contributes to the sources of funds that we're able to award each year. So we certainly feel that we'll have plenty to award in the springtime.
And have grants already started coming in for the next grant cycle?
We're aware of a number of applications that are being worked on right now.
The deadline is March 2nd.
March 2nd, all right, it's
If
coming
they're
up.
like me, they may be turning them in on April or February 28th or
Right.
whatever. But
Right. Wow, good to know. And WEF is a nonprofit, so it's tax deductible, all donations. And you have a series of campaigns, and one would go to the website, welleslyeducationfoundation.org, and there's lots of prompts there to show people where to go and how to donate. So it's fairly easy to find. Good to know. So please do share any other thoughts either of you might have on WEF or the upcoming grant cycle or the current cycle of grants that you just put out? Any other thoughts?
I guess I can just mention that we are working on a system. We have a technology team within WEF that's been putting together an application. It will enable the educators to apply for the grants online. Up until now, it's all been done primarily by just downloading a document and filling that out. So we're trying to move online with
so
the
educators
application
just go to the
process.
website and they can log in and they can just apply right there?
Correct.
Awesome.
So we're going to be trying to pilot the online application system this spring. So.
That'll definitely, I think you may double your number of grants coming in, and then you'll have all this homework.
That'll be a good thing.
Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely.
But I think WEF really speaks to the fact that most of us believe that our schools are an important asset to our community, and the fact that we are willing to
do something
about it, to invest in those schools above and beyond what we have to pay in property taxes.
Right.
I think it really speaks well for our community and for the people that live there, and we're really proud that we are able to do it. So.
Great. Well, on that note, it's been a pleasure having you both in the studio today, and we'll have to have you back on in the spring for the next grant cycle. Can't wait to see what you fund then.
Me too.
Yes, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.